Hi, Gene here with today's thought, and today I'm going to give you my explanation for the insane policy of this Biden administration that we are unfortunately stuck with for at least a few more months, hopefully not past January 20th, 2025. Cross your fingers. But in the meantime, we've got this foreign policy in the Middle East that is just crazy. Now, I'm going to be talking about the entire Middle East. So we're talking about Iran, Saudi Arabia. This applies to Israel, of course, and Gaza and the Israel-Gaza war, Hezbollah, Lebanon. But I'm going to focus on Israel today, but it's an example that applies to the whole Middle East. I'm going to explain the whole thing by talking about what's going on in Israel now, specifically the administration's repeated efforts to negotiate a ceasefire with a terrorist organization, Hamas, between Israel and Hamas, and why they keep doing this. So I'm going to define what I mean by the insanity of their policy, and I'm going to explain why it is. I'll just briefly say about Iran also would apply to the repeated efforts to negotiate, to appease, why they're appeasing Iran to pursue the mirage of a nuclear deal, a deal that would convince Iran, because it doesn't prevent them, unless you're going to need military force to prevent them from developing a nuclear weapon if they want to, but to convince them of their own free will without any pressure on them, really, to just say, oh yeah, we're just going to give up our nuclear weapons, our quest for a nuclear weapon. The policy is insane. I will just mention one other thing before we get right into the meat of our subject. Robert Gates, he is the former defense secretary under Obama, and he famously said, you may have heard this, that Joe Biden has been on the wrong side of virtually every foreign policy issue during his entire career, on virtually every foreign policy issue, Biden has been wrong. So that's a track record that we're dealing with. Now, what do I mean by insanity? Because I'm not talking about the specific policy, whether the policy, if you've been watching this vlog, I think that the policy towards Israel and Gaza, and trying to apparently follow the Obama doctrine of shifting America's loyalties from Israel, from a Western democracy, to the dictatorship of Iran. So I think those policies are wrong, but that's not the element of insanity that I want to talk about today. The element that I want to talk today is not the specific policy, but the definition of insanity that it's attributed to Albert Einstein. I'm not sure. It may be one of these quotes that, for instance, Abraham Lincoln was supposed to, the saying, you can fool all the people some of the time, some of the people all the time, but you can't fool all the people all the time. That's always attributed to Abraham Lincoln, but I recall reading that actually it was not Abraham Lincoln who said that, even though it's true, but it wasn't Abraham Lincoln that said that. So I don't know if I believe it was Einstein who said this. Bill Clinton repeated it, said the same thing in the first presidential debates against George Bush, and it's the definition of insanity, defining insanity as doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result. And that's what I'm talking about when it comes to the Middle East, because no matter how many times let's go right to the headline. Okay, I'm going to give you a couple of headlines right here, and then I'll give you my analysis, my explanation for what's going on here. Chance for Gaza ceasefire down to Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar, Blinken says in Tel Aviv. Referring to Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar, Blinken says there is a strong consensus in Israel and internationally to move forward with implementing the proposal. This would be the ceasefire, the umpteenth attempt at a ceasefire, but that it really is down to one person at this point. Everyone has agreed to the deal except Hamas, he says, when asked if he believes the terror group to be leaning toward supporting it. If Hamas doesn't say yes, then this is clearly on them in terms of a vote to continue the war, not end it, on them in terms of the safety, the well-being of hundreds of thousands, millions of Palestinian women, children, and men in Gaza, he says. That's the first headline. Now let's go to the second one. Joe Biden and the left must know better than to deal with the devil known as Hamas. And of course, they must know better. Either that or they're just hopelessly naive, hopelessly blind, or hopelessly hopeful. You're doing those quotes I just read you. It's as if Blinken is talking to children. Just say, well, if you don't do this, you're a bad boy if you don't do this. They're terrorists. It's a terrorist. And there was an article in the Wall Street Journal quoting some mess. Maybe you read the story. I'm not going to put up more headlines and draw this part out longer than it has to be. But it messages from Yahya Sinwar to the to Hania, to the leadership that's sitting in comfortable hotel rooms in Qatar, telling them that so many all the people, all the Gazan civilians who are dying, he says, well, it's a necessary sacrifice. He doesn't care about his own people, never mind about Israelis. He is totally focused on pursuing his own mirage of destroying Israel, of eliminating Israel and killing every Jew in Israel and all over the world. I mean, Hamas is linked to the Muslim Brotherhood, and the Muslim Brotherhood's goal is to make the entire world Muslim, convert the entire world to Islam, or convert the entire world to Islam and kill anybody who doesn't want to be converted, who doesn't want to convert to Islam. That's basically what he wants to do. Definitely kill all the Jews. That's his goal. And the idea of every time Hamas has rejected every offer that the United States has tried to cobble together with Egypt and Qatar, and it's always fallen apart the latest one just fell apart yesterday, the day before I'm recording this, so it's 2 days before you're seeing this video, and they rejected it again. They were given it would have been a 3-phase, very complicated 3-phase ceasefire, and then a certain amount of hostages would be released in the first one. Then they would talk about extending the ceasefire, and Hamas always comes back with the same thing, that any deal must require Israel to completely leave the Gaza Strip so that Hamas can return to power. And they put a new twist on the new twist this time. What happened? They get these agreements and they say, well, it's report. Everybody's ecstatic. Hamas is responding positively. I've seen this phrase over and over, responding positively to the offer. And and then you get back from Hamas, the agreement comes back with revisions. They revise the agreement and then say, well, this is what we're accepting, or this is what we understand. And it's always the same thing, that Israel has to withdraw, and it has to permanently end. No, it's not a temporary ceasefire. It has to be a permanent ceasefire. They have never wavered from that position. And they've added a new twist this time, which is that the ceasefire would not be permanent. So they're agreeing to a temporary ceasefire, but Israel has to withdraw completely from the Gaza Strip. And the idea is obvious, which is that Israel withdraws completely. Hamas rebuilds its forces and imports more weapons into Gaza, and then breaks the ceasefire or just attacks Israel again, because the ceasefire is not a permanent ceasefire. So it should be obvious Israel is never going to accept those terms. Why should they? They're winning. But Hamas, this article that I just mentioned, that I referred to in the Wall Street Journal, these messages that were found from Sinwar to Hanya in Gitter, that he believes he's winning. He specifically says, we have the Israelis where we want them. And he also says something else that I'm going to refer to. I think I'm going to discuss maybe in the next vlog. But this is the important part, that we have the Israelis where we want them. And the idea is that he just has to hold out, and sooner or later, the international community and left-wing Israelis, by the way, left-wing Israelis who would rather see Netanyahu driven from office than see an Israeli victory in Gaza. They would rather see another October 7th than have Netanyahu stay in office. Their left in Israel's like our left here. And I don't want to get off on that track today, but he believes that he's winning. He just has to hold out, and then Israel will be pressured into leaving Gaza. And what you have to understand about Hamas is that you can beat the crap out of them. If there's one member of Hamas left, if Israel kills everybody except every member of Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad, kills everybody, but there is one left standing, that one will declare victory. He will say, we stood up to even though it's just one person, we stood up to the Israelis, we defeated them, and there will be all these supposedly innocent civilians will be dancing in the streets, passing out candy. So they have to be totally defeated. That's the way this ends. And people seem to have forgotten that Hamas kidnapped a single Israeli soldier, Gilad Shalit, years and years ago. I think it was 2014. I'm not sure. And they'd been holding him. Israel traded 1,000 terrorists in their prisons to get back this one soldier, Israeli soldier. And what happened? And there was a ceasefire in place on October 6th. And we know what happened on October 7th. But the point I'm making is that they traded 1,000 terrorists to get back one soldier. And now look what happened. A massacre of 1,200 Israelis, the capture of a lot more, about 250 hostages. One hostage before that they traded 1,000 terrorists for. Now 250 hostages, not to mention 1,200 Israelis massacred. So do you want that to happen again? But this administration, now we get to why the insanity part. Now the insanity part, as you saw in the thumbnail to this vlog today, today's thought, Lucy pulling the football away from Charlie Brown, because the same thing, always she says something to make Charlie Brown believe that it's going to be different this time, and he tries to kick the football, it's taken away from him, and he falls flat on his back. It happens over and over again, and that's what's happening in the Middle East. We have this administration coming back again and again and again, trying to forge a deal where there is no deal. This should be the last straw. We'll see what happens, but it should be the last straw. The administration should say, we tried. This was a deal they could have accepted. They rejected it. So now Israel, go ahead, win a complete victory. And that's what's going to happen if this is still going on when, well, I'll say if, I hope it's a when, but if Trump becomes president. If Trump wins, then you're going to see a complete sea change. Now we get to why are they pursuing this policy? And there are two reasons. And the first one is that we'll do the simplest one first, is that Biden he's headed for defeat as the situation looks today. He's worried he needs a foreign policy success, especially after the debacle in Afghanistan. He's had no foreign policy success. He wants one because also he's jealous of, or just a comparison to Trump. Trump, he moved the embassy to Jerusalem, but most important, he created the Abraham Accords. That was a major foreign policy achievement. Of course, he doesn't get recognized for it. He should get a Nobel Prize for that. He was nominated for a Nobel Prize for it, but of course that's not going to happen because the people on the Nobel Peace Prize committee are they're left-wing elite Europeans. So he can forget that compared to Barack Obama, who got the Peace Prize 100 days, within his first 100 days in office, hadn't done anything, but just for being the black president, I guess. And he didn't make himself the black president. We elected him. So we should get the Nobel Prize. But anyways, getting off on a track here. Getting back, he wants a foreign policy success to say, well, we can do our foreign policy we're just as good at it as Trump was. So that's what they want. That's number one. And actually, now that I think of it, that, well, that's the one reason. I was going to say, I just thought of a third one and it just went out of my head. But the other one is that, another one, now I got three, I think, is that they believe that, this is part of their worldview, that every issue is negotiable, that when you have a dispute between two countries and Trump actually has this, well, he's not as bad. He knew that you couldn't negotiate with ISIS, but he's saying that if I'm president, I'll solve the Russia-Ukraine war in one day, within 24 hours. So he talks about there's no negotiated solution there either, unless the Russians are losing really badly, which we should help them to do, in my opinion, but that's another thought for another day. And I know a lot of you would probably disagree with me, or some of you, but the Democrats, liberals, they believe everything can be negotiated. If they'd been around in World War II, well, you had Neville Chamberlain. There are a bunch of Neville Chamberlains. Neville Chamberlain negotiated with Adolf Hitler. He thought he could, peace in our time. He came back, got off the plane, waving the piece of paper, a worthless piece of paper around, peace in our time. And of course, that's not how it turned out. We eventually meanwhile, Churchill had been warning that we're heading for World War II. Germany has to be stopped. But the liberals never learn. They always believe that anything can be, if they were still in charge, they would still be trying, the Nazi regime would still exist, and we would be, liberals would trying to get us to negotiate with them. So that's part of their worldview. But the other part is that, well, those are actually the other two. I mean, just that this belief that if you do the third one is what I said, the definition of insanity, that they believe that they're so committed to their worldview that they will just default to that every time, over and over and over again. They will keep trying, not just Israel, Iran, it would be so easy. Trump had them bankrupt. They were down to $4 billion, I think it was, in national reserve, in foreign reserves, and now I think they have over $100 billion now. They're selling oil. They weren't able to sell oil before, but it's possible to pressure Iran. If not the Israelis, just give the Israelis bunker busters. They'll take care of it. I don't know why Trump didn't do that, but the Israelis themselves are capable, I think, of preventing the program. The Israelis and we together definitely could do it. We could do it alone. But we have an administration that is just committed to appeasing Iran, that if we give them enough money, if we're nice to them, that they will just come, they'll say, well, we really have been bad people. We haven't been really as nice as we could be. We really should give up our nuclear weapons. And they're not going to do that just by looking at, I guess this is getting kind of lengthy here, but you have to North Korea too are looking at Libya. This was the Obama administration, another insane policy that makes no sense, that incredible. Gaddafi was pursuing a nuclear weapon of his own. He gave it up. He willingly gave it up. He did try to reconcile with the West. I don't know how far he meant to go. I don't know how much it was a result of pressure or how much was a change of heart. But he voluntarily gave up his nuclear weapons or his nuclear program. And what happened? The Obama administration supported a coup that took him out. And so North Korea is saying, especially, well, if we give up our nuclear weapons, how do we know they won't? The United States won't foment a coup to take, the Kim crime family out of power, or maybe kill them. And what happened to Gaddafi? He was killed. So they don't want. That's this crazy policy that we pursued, that we applied in Libya. We saw that's what happened. They gave it, and now it's going to be much harder to get. You're going to need force now or extreme pressure to get these other countries to get Iran to give up its program. We're talking about Iran today, so I won't dwell on North Korea, but and they already have a nuclear weapon. But you have to look at, how did South Africa? They had a nuke. You may not know, or you may not recall, but they had nukes. And they gave them up. They willingly gave them up, and they gave up apartheid, and it was because of pressure from the rest of the world. I remember, because my father had a fruit market, and I remember the boycott of South African green apples. So the customers, we had black customers, they wouldn't buy them. So it's I guess I'm just kind of going on here now. I've already explained why, just to sum up, why the administration is pursuing this policy towards the Middle East. And it's because, number one, they want a success. Number two, it's their worldview. And number three, that if they pursue the same thing over and over and over again, that they will eventually get a different result. They don't seem to know that they are dealing, certain people there are some people in this world you cannot bargain with. And I would put terrorists in that group. And that's my thought for today. I would love to put all of you in my own group of subscribers. If you could subscribe, that would really be great. Share this video with anyone you think would benefit from it. But most of all, come back and see me again. I would love to see all of you again. And until I do see all of you again, bye.